The ruined skyscrapers of old Chicago reached toward the purple-tinged sky like broken fingers. Reese Blackwood watched through his scope as 3 Sentinel patrols glided between the decaying structures, their bioluminescent armor casting eerie blue light across the rubble. 10 years after the invasion, the aliens still hunted the remaining humans with relentless efficiency. Reese adjusted his position on the crumbling ledge, careful not to disturb any loose debris. His weathered combat suit, scavenged and modified over years of guerrilla warfare, masked his heat signature from Sentinel sensors. It had kept him alive while others fell, though sometimes he wondered if survival was worth the cost. The lead Sentinel stopped, head tilting in that unnaturally smooth way their species moved. Even after a decade of fighting them, watching their fluid grace still sent chills down Reese's spine. This one was different, its armor bore markings he'd never seen, and it moved with a predatory confidence that set it apart from its companions. Target located, the lead Sentinel's voice carried across the wind, harmonic and beautiful despite its deadly intent. Proceed with caution. This one is different. Reese allowed himself a grim smile. They had no idea how different. His fingers tightened on his modified pulse rifle, the weapon humming with barely contained energy. The Resistance had learned to adapt Sentinel technology, turning their own weapons against them. It was the only reason humanity had survived this long. The hunt had begun, but this time, the prey was ready. The lead Sentinel, Nyara, felt something she'd never experienced before, doubt. Her quarry's heat signature was wrong, too perfect, like a hole in the world. In her centuries of hunting, she'd never encountered prey that could mask itself so completely. Split formation, she commanded, her subordinates immediately moving to flank the target's last known position. But something nagged at her enhanced senses. The pattern was wrong. This wasn't prey running scared, this was a predator setting up an ambush. The first explosion took out her right flank, the carefully placed charges turning the unstable building into a cascade of falling concrete and steel. Her left flank disappeared in a burst of modified plasma fire, their screams cut short by precision shots that shouldn't have been possible from a primitive species. Impressive, Nyara broadcast, her voice carrying through the ruins. You've learned our weapons well, human. Had good teachers, a male voice responded from everywhere and nowhere. Amazing what you can learn from studying dead Sentinels. She should have felt anger at the taunt, but instead, fascination stirred within her. This human was different, adaptive, cunning, evolved beyond his species' limitations. Perhaps this was why the elders were so afraid. You can't escape, she said, moving through the ruins with liquid grace. The hunt always ends the same way. Does it? The voice was closer now. Tell me, Sentinel, have you ever wondered why your kind hunts mine? What makes us so dangerous that the mighty collective fears us enough to order our extinction? Nyara froze. The human knew things he shouldn't, classified information about the collective's true motives. You're a plague, she recited the official doctrine. A cancer that would spread across the galaxy if left unchecked. A dark chuckle echoed through the ruins. Is that what they told you? Interesting. Then why did they send their best hunter to capture me alive? Her blood ran cold. Those orders were encrypted, known only to her. This human had somehow intercepted collective communications. Impossible. You're not just hunting me, Reese continued, his voice moving again. You're studying me. The question is, why? A shadow moved at the edge of her vision. Nyara spun, plasma caster charging, but she was a fraction too slow. The human stood before her, his combat suit a patchwork of scavenged Sentinel technology. His eyes held no fear, only a predatory intelligence that matched her own. Because, he said softly, your species is dying. And somehow, humanity holds the key to your survival. The truth of his words hit her like a physical blow. The genetic degradation affecting her people, the increasing sterility, the desperate search for a cure, how could he know? Impossible, she whispered. Nothing's impossible, Reese said, lowering his weapon slightly. That's why you fear us. Humans don't accept limitations. We evolve, adapt, survive. And now, Sentinel, you have a choice. A choice. Kill me, follow your orders, and condemn your species to extinction. Or. His eyes locked with hers, work with me to discover why the collective is so desperate to keep our species apart. For the first time in her centuries of existence, Nyara faced a prey that offered not submission, but partnership. A human who hunted the truth with the same relentless determination she hunted him. The ruined city held its breath, waiting for her answer. And in that moment, both hunter and hunted realized that survival might require something more dangerous than war, trust. The collective's regional command center rose from the wasteland like a living crystal, its translucent surfaces pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Reese studied it through enhanced binoculars, noting the patrol patterns of the sentinel guards. Beside him, Nyara's armor glowed dimly in the pre-dawn light. The genetic research labs are in the lower levels, she said, her harmonic voice barely above a whisper. Heavily guarded, even from most sentinels. I've never understood why. Until now, Reese replied, lowering the binoculars. 3 weeks of working together had taught them both to trust their instincts. Your people are dying, but the collective keeps it hidden. Why? Control. Nyara's armor shifted colors slightly, reflecting her unease. If the truth about our genetic degradation became known, the collective's authority might be questioned. We're supposed to be perfect. Reese smiled grimly. Perfection is overrated. It's adaptation that ensures survival. The plan was simple but dangerous. Nyara would enter the facility openly, using her high-ranking status to access the secure areas. Reese would infiltrate through the maintenance systems, using modified Sentinel tech to mask his presence. They'd meet in the central lab, where the answers to both their species' futures might lie. If we're wrong about this, Nyara said, her crystalline eyes finding his, we die. If we're right and do nothing, Reese countered, both our species die anyway. The infiltration went smoothly at first. Reese moved through the facility's neural network like a ghost, his hybrid tech allowing him to slip past security protocols. Through their encrypted comm link, he heard Nyara smoothly deflecting questions from other sentinels, her status as an elite hunter giving her almost unlimited access. Almost. Secondary scanning initiated, a mechanical voice announced as Nyara approached the lab entrance. Anomaly detected. Reese cursed softly. They'd known this might happen, prolonged contact with him had altered Nyara's genetic signature slightly. The changes were subtle but enough to trigger the facility's advanced security. Override protocol, Nyara commanded, her voice carrying the authority of centuries. Security clearance Alpha 9. There was a pause. Override denied. Genetic variants detected. Security protocol initiated. Alarms blared through the facility. Reese abandoned stealth, sprinting through maintenance tunnels toward Nyara's position. Through their link, he heard the sounds of combat. She was fighting her own kind now, centuries of training against numbers. A little busy, she grunted as he neared her position. Save some for me, he replied, rounding the corner to find her surrounded by 6 sentinel guards. Her armor was scratched but intact, her movements still carrying that lethal grace even in combat. Reese didn't hesitate. His modified pulse rifle sang, taking down 2 guards before they registered his presence. Nyara moved in perfect synchronization, her plasma caster dropping another as she spun with impossible speed. They fought together like they'd trained for centuries, human adaptability matching sentinel precision. When it was over, Reese couldn't help but admire the deadly beauty of their cooperation. The lab, Nyara reminded him, her armor cycling colors rapidly, their equivalent of heavy breathing. The security doors were sealed, but Reese's hybrid tech made quick work of the locks. Inside, holographic displays filled the air with genetic data, and suspended in stasis tubes along the walls were. By the collective, Nyara breathed. Human embryos, hundreds of them, each showing signs of genetic modification. But it was the data scrolling across the screens that made Rhys's blood run cold. They've been experimenting, he said, reading the information. Trying to combine sentinel and human DNA. Looking for a way to stop the degradation. These dates, Nyara moved closer to the displays. They knew. Before the invasion, they knew their perfect evolution was failing. They needed human adaptability, our ability to evolve naturally. So they invaded. Rhys's voice was hard. Killed billions, hoping to find the key to their survival in our DNA. But it wasn't working. Nyara's armor had shifted to deep blue, confusion, revelation. The forced combinations were unstable. Except. She turned to him, her crystalline eyes wide. Except for natural adaptation. Like what's happening to me through exposure to you. The facility shook as security forces converged on their position. Through the windows, they could see dropships descending, carrying more Sentinel troops. They'll kill us both, Nyara said. The collective can't let this truth escape. Rhys checked his weapons, a plan already forming. Then let's give them something else to worry about. He moved to the central console, his hybrid tech interfacing with the facility's systems. Every Sentinel in range is about to receive proof of the collective's lies. Let's see how perfect their control is when their soldiers learn they're dying. They'll brand us traitors, Nyara warned, but she was already moving to cover his position. I've been called worse, Rhys smiled, his fingers flying over the controls. Ready to really hunt together? Her armor shifted to combat red, her plasma caster humming to life. Always. The truth spread through the facility's networks like a virus, impossible to contain. Above them, the first explosions began as Sentinel fought Sentinel, centuries of lies unraveling in moments. And in the chaos, a human and a Sentinel prepared to fight their way out, carrying a truth that could either save or destroy both their species. The real war was just beginning. The Resistance bunker was chaos. Rhys and Nyara's broadcast had reached further than they'd anticipated, triggering a chain reaction across Sentinel forces worldwide. On the monitors lining the bunker's walls, reports streamed in of Sentinel units turning against the collective, of battles erupting in cities across the globe. They're calling it the Awakening, Commander Jensen said, her weathered face illuminated by the screen's glow. The Resistance leader hadn't wanted to trust a Sentinel, but the data Rhys and Nyara had stolen was undeniable. Your people are tearing themselves apart. Nyara's armor shifted through patterns of distress, its crystalline surface reflecting the turmoil within. The lie was everything. Remove it. And the perfect soldiers start thinking for themselves, Rhys finished. He stood close to her, noticing how the other Resistance fighters still kept their distance. Trust came slowly after a decade of war. We have a bigger problem. Jensen activated a central hologram, showing a massive energy signature moving through the upper atmosphere. The collectives bringing in their apex predators. The Harbingers. Rhys felt Nyara tense beside him. Even among Sentinels, Harbingers were legendary, massive biomechanical constructs designed for a single purpose, absolute destruction. They'll sterilize everything, Nyara's voice carried harmonics of fear. The collective would rather destroy both species than risk losing control. How long? Rhys asked. Hours, Jensen replied. Maybe less. They're targeting major population centers first, human and rebel Sentinel alike. The bunker shook as distant explosions began. On the screens, massive shapes descended through the clouds, their crystalline forms darkening the sky. The Harbingers had arrived. There might be a way, Nyara said suddenly, her armor cycling to a color Rhys had never seen before. But you won't like it. She interfaced with the bunker's systems, bringing up genetic data from the research facility. The collective's experiments failed because they tried to force evolution. But what's happening to me? The the changes from prolonged exposure to human DNA, its natural adaptation. You want to trigger the same change in other sentinels, Reese understood immediately. Use our compatibility to force an evolutionary leap. If enough sentinels evolve, adapt like I have, Nyara's eyes found his, the harbingers would face an enemy they weren't designed to fight. The casualties would be massive, Jensen warned. And there's no guarantee it would work. Another explosion, closer now. The bunker's lights flickered. We're out of options, Reese said. How do we do it? Nyara's armor shifted again, embarrassment coloring her patterns. The changes started with prolonged physical contact. To affect enough sentinels quickly. We need to get very close, Reese finished, understanding dawning. And broadcast the genetic catalyst through their neural network. It would need to be at a control node, Nyara brought up a map. The primary network hub in what you once called Denver. If we can upload the genetic key there. Every connected sentinel would begin adapting, Jensen nodded slowly. Including the harbingers. Or it kills them all, Reese added grimly. Including you. Nyara's armor pulsed with determination. Better death than slavery to the collective's lies. The bunker rocked with another impact. Through the chaos, Reese noticed something he hadn't before, other resistance fighters watching Nyara with something beyond fear or hatred. Recognition, perhaps. Understanding. I'll need volunteers, he announced to the room. Humans willing to get up close and personal with sentinels. To share our greatest strength, our ability to adapt. To evolve together, Nyara added, or die separately. Hands raised across the bunker. After 10 years of war, the chance to end it, even at great risk, was worth taking. The harbingers will protect the control node, Jensen warned. It's a suicide mission. Reese checked his hybrid weapons, a grim smile crossing his face. Then we better make it count. They moved through the bunker's levels, gathering volunteers and equipment. Humans and rebel sentinels working together, preparing for one final push. The irony wasn't lost on Reese, the collective's perfect soldiers finding salvation in the very imperfection they were taught to destroy. Having second thoughts, he asked Nyara as they prepared to move out. Her armor shifted through patterns he'd learned to read as affection. About evolving? No. About whether we'll survive to see what we become. She let the thought hang. Above them, the harbingers' weapons began to reshape the earth, their crystalline forms blocking out the sun. But in the darkness of the bunker, something new was taking shape, an alliance born of desperation, a hope built on the very adaptability the collective had tried to eliminate. Together then, Reese said, offering his hand. Nyara took it, her armor resonating with his hybrid tech. Together. The war for survival was about to become a fight for evolution itself. And this time, neither species would face it alone. The Denver control node rose before them, a twisted spire of living crystal that pulsed with sickly light. Above it, 3 harbingers hung in the sky like dark stars, their massive forms casting shadows across the ruined city. The combined force of humans and rebel sentinels took cover in the ruins, watching as patrol units swept the perimeter. The node's defenses are adaptive, Nyara explained, her armor shifting through tactical patterns. They learn from each attack, become stronger. No one has ever breached them. No one ever had to before, Reese replied, checking the neural transmitter they'd cobbled together from salvaged tech. The device would broadcast their genetic catalyst through the Sentinel network, assuming they got close enough to use it. Commander Jensen's voice crackled over their comm, Harbinger energy signatures are spiking. They're starting another cleansing run. In the distance, crystalline beams lanced from the massive constructs, turning everything they touched to ash. The collective's message was clear, evolution would not be permitted. Now, Reese commanded, and the attack began. Rebel sentinels moved first, their armor blazing with defiant light as they engaged the patrol units. Human resistance fighters followed, using modified weapons that disrupted the node's defensive fields. The plan was simple: create enough chaos to slip a small team inside. Reese and Nyara led their strike team through the breach, fighting their way deeper into the structure. The node's interior was a maze of crystalline corridors that shifted and changed, trying to trap them. But Nyara's knowledge and Reese's hybrid tech kept them moving forward. "Something's wrong," Nyara said suddenly, her armor cycling to warning colors. "These defenses, they're not just adaptive. They're familiar." A massive door sealed behind them, cutting off their support team. Ahead, the corridor opened into a vast chamber dominated by a pulsing crystal core. And standing before it was a figure that made Nyara's armor flare with recognition. "Welcome home, child," the figure said, its form shifting between crystalline and organic forms. "We've been waiting." "Architect," Nyara whispered, her voice carrying harmonics of awe and fear. Reese raised his weapon, but Nyara stopped him. "She's one of the first. The original sentinels who created the collective." The architect moved with impossible grace, each step leaving trails of light. "So quick to violence, human. But then, that's why we had to contain your species. Your chaos threatens the perfect order we created." "Your perfect order is killing them," Reese snarled. "The genetic degradation is by design," the architect finished. "Evolution is messy, unpredictable. Better a clean death than random mutation. Better extinction than imperfection." "You're insane," Nyara's armor blazed with anger. "You destroy your own people to maintain control. Look at yourself," the architect gestured, and images appeared in the air, genetic scans showing how Nyara's DNA had begun incorporating human markers. Already corrupted by their influence. This is why the harbingers were necessary. A final solution to maintain purity. The chamber shook as battles raged outside. Through their neural link, Reese felt Nyara's horror at the revelation. The collective hadn't failed to stop the degradation, they'd caused it, preferring to end their species than let it evolve naturally. "But there was something you didn't account for," Reese said, understanding dawning. "Human adaptability isn't just physical. It's in everything we do, how we think, how we feel." "Irrelevant," the architect waved a crystalline hand, and energy fields sprang up around them. "Your genetic catalyst will never reach the core. The pure order of the collective will be preserved." "You still don't understand," Nyara's armor shifted to a new pattern, one that merged sentinel precision with human unpredictability. "We're not here to destroy the collective." Reese smiled grimly, activating his hybrid tech. "We're here to make it evolve." They moved together, human and sentinel as one. The architect was powerful, ancient, but it fought with perfect patterns, predictable sequences. Reese and Nyara flowed around its attacks, their combined fighting style something entirely new. "Impossible," the architect snarled as Nyara's plasma caster breached its defenses. "The patterns, they make no sense." "That's the point," Reese said, his hybrid weapons disrupting the energy fields. "Evolution isn't about making sense. It's about adaptation. Change. Survival." They fought their way to the core, each step bringing them closer to either salvation or extinction. Outside, the harbingers continued their cleansing, unaware that the very network controlling them was about to change forever. Nyara reached the core first, her armor interfacing with its crystalline surface. "The genetic key, it needs both of us. A true fusion of human and sentinel DNA." Reese joined her, their hands meeting on the core's surface. Through their neural link, he felt everything, Nyara's fear, her hope, the desperate gamble they were taking. "Together then," he said. "Together," she agreed. They uploaded the catalyst as the architect screamed in rage. The core pulsed once, twice, then erupted with blinding light. Through their link, Reese felt the change begin, not just in Nyara, but in every connected sentinel, including the harbingers above. The perfect order of the collective was about to become something gloriously, beautifully imperfect. And the war for evolution entered its final phase.